Okay, awesome. You guys can hear. Other than my initial sort of soldering and assembly code, we have all been dabbling with AI. How many people actually spend all your weekend hours dabbling with AI of some sort? That's sad, isn't it? I thought AI is going to fix all the problems and I'm going to have more weekend time, but it's not looking like that. A lot of us are trying to figure out this technology. And we haven't changed as humans and leaders. I think one of the key things that I look at my days is really obsessing as to how this technology is going to evolve our lives and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. I think that is the fundamental shift that we're going to go through. And it's in a way liberating because we are kind of like the pioneers who can figure this out. If it is not us, who else? Especially the next generation is looking at us saying, you know what, figure this out, people, so we know what to do. So as we're going through, one of the key things at Autodesk for us, what's most important as we figure this out, is one thing I'll tell you is for sure is we're going to make mistakes. That is for sure. Because we are all learning and we're moving and we want to do this together, right? So you can be guaranteed if you're trying hard, we're going to make mistakes. And when we do that, I know this community is going to tell us exactly when we're doing something wrong or when we're not doing right. And I'm going to rely on that, and we're all going to rely on that. And why we are being transparent and talking about including you in our workflows and all of that stuff, I'm sure something's going to go wrong. But guess what? If you don't try, we're never going to learn. That is the most important sort of grounding principle for us. Another thing for Autodesk for us as technologists, there's a lot of great technologists that work at Autodesk. They're all sitting right in front of here, but many who are at home, right, in other areas. Well, one of the key things we worry about, we wake up and say, where do we apply this technology? We don't start off as, what is this cool technology? Let's go play with it. We don't start there. We go, where is this most important and impactful in our industries? Let's start there. The second thing we look at is, what is real here and what's not? I don't know. There was A2A and MCPs and all of that stuff that went through, and we went through that whole sort of journey for the past year. There's still some things that are evolving, right? We were actually among the very few people working with the MCP Linux Foundation to ensure that it's actually securely done. That protocol is written securely. We care about these things. Our industry cares, our customers care about security, permissioning, all of these things that cannot be sacrificed in this technology. And the other bigger thing for us is not messing up. You heard Shelley talk about from probabilistic answers to deterministic answer. You saw BCA here. There's no way in Singapore he's going to be okay if we give him a different answer the next morning. That's not going to work, really. Even for this 4,000 deterministic answers rules that he had, there's 2,000 that still are not deterministic. And we cannot screw that up. So these are the most important grounding principles for us, is to ensure we take risk, but we need to do that in a very sort of calculated and make sure that it actually works. Some of you have asked me this question, you guys are not making enough noise about AI. You're not really talking about all the stuff that you need to put out there. It's because we want to get this right. One of the key things, even when we rolled out Assistant in the past few weeks, we wanted to make sure we are running all our eval framework, making sure that it actually comes through right. We are monitoring all of our social media and all of that channel just to ensure we didn't mess this up. Okay? So that is important. And I'm looking to this community to make sure you hold us to the bar, that we hold ourselves. The second thing for us, most important, is making sure that AI actually shows up in the workflows. We have realized it's not just about the task automation. It is that workflow automation that I talked about. That is the most important thing, because we might live in our products. You live in workflows. And when you live in workflows, we need to show up in those workflows and make sure that workflow is automated. So that is a key focus for us, and you'll see that in many of the examples that we will give here, or even in AU or other places. You'll see us play out that kind of workflow automation. So there's quite a bit. I want you to assure you that as technologists, we want to make mistakes. We want to try. We want to not stop trying. But at the same time, one of the key things we want is ensure that it is applicable for our industries and applicable for our customers. That's most important to us. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Jeremy Kahn, from our AI editor from Fortune, right here with us, and he's got some amazing, interesting content around this. Take it away, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Raji. I'm Jeremy Kahn. I'm the AI editor at Fortune. I'm also the author of a book, Mastering AI, a survival guide to our superpowered future, that came out about a year ago, if you want to pick up a copy of that. I'm going to give a quick overview of sort of where we are in the AI landscape before we get to our first panel. This is sort of organized as the what, the why, and the how of AI. So where are we right now with AI and AI development? AI capabilities are coming along at a very rapid clip. And you may have be familiar with this particular chart behind me. This is from METR, M-E-T-R, which is one of the leading AI kind of evaluation, independent evaluators of frontier AI models. And what this shows is they test how long AI can work autonomously to certain standards. This is on software development tasks. This is how long can an AI model work autonomously with a 50% success rate. And we're currently up to over 10 hours that the leading models like Claude Code from Anthropic using Opus 4.6, their latest model, that can work for now over 10 hours continuously with a 50% chance of success on these software development tasks. And what this chart has shown is that these AI capabilities have been doubling about every 7 months since 2019. And there's some indication that actually in the last 2 years, they may be moving at an even faster pace, that we're at a kind of an inflection point where capabilities may be doubling every 3 months. And I should say also on that last chart, METR also looks at how long it takes to develop for software to AI models to complete these same software development tasks with an 80% success rate. There we're at just over an hour of autonomous work that the leading models can do with an 80% success rate. Despite the model capabilities coming along very rapidly, we still live in a world of what Google CEO Sundar Pichai has dubbed jagged intelligence. And I think an interesting way to think about this jaggedness is that you have models that excel in some areas, coding and software development being one of them. But in other areas, they really struggle. And actually, in an area that we're going to talk a lot about here today, and which is very relevant for Autodesk and all of its customers, is visual reasoning and visual understanding, is an area where AI models are still not as capable as people. The jaggedness is actually reflected in how you see AI's impact across different professional areas. The chart behind me now is also from Anthropic, and they tried to look at what tasks in what professional areas could AI today theoretically perform, and then also looking at, based on their own usage statistics, where do they actually see people using AI to perform tasks? And what really comes across in this is that sort of jaggedness of that profile. So again, in certain tasks, management, business and finance, legal, you see the blue area, which is the theoretical coverage, is quite deep, close to 100%. Theoretically, AI models today could do a lot of those tasks. And then the red area is actually what's actually being done. And you see, even in the areas where AI is potentially very capable, we're still just sort of scratching the surface of what people are actually using the models for. And there's often good reason for that. This is another way of looking at the same chart. A lot of people like that radar chart from Anthropic, but a bunch of people said it's really hard to see what's going on, and doing it as a bar chart is better. So this is as a bar chart. And you'll see that when it comes to sort of architecture and engineering, for instance, the theoretical coverage by AI that Anthropic calculated was 82%. But if you look at the red here, the actual observed activity in AI, in architecture and engineering, it's just about 18% of tasks right now that they're seeing people actually using AI to do. But again, these capabilities are coming along very quickly. And to talk about this more, moving from automation to AI agency, I want to introduce my panelists. We've got Vladimir Koylazov, the head of innovation at Chaos, Henry Veldhuis, the chief digital officer from Sweco in the Netherlands, and Ben Cochran, the VP of developer enablement at Autodesk. So let's welcome them onto the stage, and they're going to join me in conversation for our first panel. See you. Ben, good to see you. Let's have a seat. Yeah, take a seat at the end, Ben. Great. Vlad, why don't we start with you? Why don't you talk a little bit about where you're using AI right now, sort of within what Chaos is doing, explain a little bit to people about what Chaos does generally, for those who may not be familiar, and then talk a little bit about where you're using AI right now.
So Chaos as a company, has been around for more than 25 years. We are creating software for visualization, simulation, design companion pieces. We're mostly famous for 3 pieces of software. Enscape, which is our design companion software for architects. We also have V-Ray, which is an offline render engine that is used for architecture visualization, but also a lot of movie effects. Basically, like all the 10 nominations for Oscars for visual effects this year used V-Ray in some form or shape. And then we have Corona, which is a renderer that is specifically focused on architectural visualization. For us, visualization at the moment is the biggest chunk of what we do, and AI has a big impact on how people approach visualization. Up until this point, you needed a renderer to create an image. So you needed a 3D model, you needed to apply materials, you needed to apply lights and all that until you get an image that you can show to your clients. Today, you can just type a text prompt, or you can draw a sketch, and AI will do the work for you. So it's another way, completely another way to create images, and you can also generate videos out of that. So for us, that's an interesting opportunity. You still need a physically based engine like V-Ray and Corona and Enscape if you want to stay true to the original 3D model and you want to show exactly what you designed. But in the early stages, when you are just trying to figure out what the project might look like, if you just want some inspiration or some mood boards to show to a potential customer, this is where AI can be really helpful, because you can just, from a few sketches, you can create something that you can tell you if you're going in the right direction or not. So in this stage, AI is very, very helpful. The other area is the end stage, where you already have a final image, but you want to do some final touches, add some details, make it a little bit more realistic. Especially people and vegetation are really, really difficult to do realistically with 3D rendering, but AI can help a lot in that regard.
Right, so at the beginning of the process, when you're doing initial sort of creative visualization, it's very good for that, and maybe at the end of the process to add some touch-ups to an image. But the middle bit, where you actually have to get physical reality to match up with the image, and where you need actually some engineering knowledge, that's where you're still not really seeing the models capable enough, right?
Exactly, that's a little bit more difficult, and what we see is that the current models, LLMs, both LLMs and VLMs, visual language models, don't really have a very good understanding of spatial relations between objects. So if you say, I want this object on top of another object, or I want you to move this sofa like 5 meters to the left or to the right, they're not really very good at this yet.
Great. All right, Henry, Sweco, why don't you talk a little about, people may be very familiar with you, but just say a little bit about what you guys do, and then where you're using AI in your process.
Yeah, so I work for Sweco. Sweco is the largest engineering company in Europe, located in the northwestern part of Europe. And we use it almost in every part of our company. It was in 2022 that ChatGPT became big. What I'm really proud of was that we as a company created our own Sweco GPT just a few months after this launch of ChatGPT. And then our journey started. And now it's being used in every part of our company. We have, for instance, an HR chatbot. So people want to, in the past, they asked questions to the HR manager. Now they have their own chatbot where they can ask questions. So what I see at the moment, it's really spreading through our whole company. And to give you some statistics, we found out that 95% of our colleagues uses Sweco GPT, and 60% uses this on a daily basis. So that is really impressive numbers. And it's also been our strategy from the start. If everybody uses it in our company and makes a very small step every day, as a company, we make huge steps. So that's our philosophy.
Yeah, so lots of small productivity gains add up to a big productivity gain. That's interesting. And I know when we were talking in preparation for this session, you said, though, that Sweco, ultimately, you're engineering important objects, bridges, roads, key buildings. They have to stand up. They have to work. And a big problem people have thought with AI is, can you trust it? And ultimately, your business is all about trust, all about things that have to work and be trustworthy in the real world. How have you managed to sort of marry AI into a business which is so dependent on trust?
First of all, I think it's very important to engage your clients, so that you engage your clients in collaborating on AI. And also to make it traceable, that if you create an answer, that you always can find the source of truth of this answer. So what we have in Sweco GPT is that if you have an answer from Sweco GPT, you can always find the source of your information.
Right, yeah, so that grounding with truth. Ben, I want to bring you in here. Where are you seeing AI being deployed within Autodesk itself, and how are you thinking about moving AI enabled features into what Autodesk can offer?
Yeah, so I have outside of APS in the developer community, I also look after developer enablement inside of Autodesk. And so I'm actually responsible for how we deploy AI tools in our development process as we build software. And I've noticed there is the usage. I sort of break the usage into three chapters, or maybe 3 acts of a play. The first one really is using the tools themselves. So you get a cursor, Claude Code, Copilot, and what you're seeing here when we build software is you can see like a maybe 5 to 30% improvement on productivity gains, and it's all aspects of building software. It's just the agents then help you, and the system helps you build software. But then there's what we see next is in the second act, or the second part, is what you can do if you actually transform or change the way you work, where you actually build teams of agents and you get, some people would say spec-driven design, or you actually have this entire agentic system that changes the way we build software. You challenge the process, you challenge all the roles essentially. And that's where you start to see things like you see 5x, 20x, 30x improvements, where you see things that once took months happening in an afternoon. And that it is a transformational way of approaching building software, where you have agents that are looking out for not just the production of the features, but the quality itself. So you're building teams that understand how to do the validation, what's important. It's not just getting the code out there, it's the right code. And then the third act of what happens is the impact of that. It challenges the processes for how we build software. And I think the whole industry is faced with this right now. We don't have the answers yet, but I don't think, I don't think Agile in our current form holds up. I don't think, some of the Scrum ceremonies and the processes and the 2-week sprints, I think they're gonna need to be revisited. And right now we're looking at that. We're looking at what does it mean for teams, disruption teams or catalyst teams as we call them. What does it mean when they work in this way, and how do we experiment to learn what the new processes will be? And then we're also staying connected in the industry to help answer that question, whatever this post-agile way of working is as we build software.
Are you changing the way you kind of configure your teams because of the use of AI? And are you looking for sort of different qualities and capabilities from the people that are going to be assisted by AI in this new process?
We don't actually know what those are, but we know that we need to. And like a great example would be, let's say you're going to add a new feature. In the past, you did a usability study, and you did it with mocks, and you go and you engage with a customer to get data and information back. Well, that takes a lot of time to build up what that possibility is. Why not just build it in the product? And if it takes you an afternoon, go out with a beta test and actually do it in product itself and get that validation. You no longer took months to build the thing, and so now you can actually put that into an afternoon, get 3 outcomes, do the experiments, do the learning before you actually put that into the main product. And once you put it in the product, you actually have the thing's already been done. It's already been created. And so it's not that the things that we did are wrong, but the order of them change. And you need people who understand that way of working, and through this transition, understanding the thing that we don't, you can't go to a textbook. Colleges aren't teaching this new way of working because the industry hasn't even solved for it yet. And so it's an interesting transition, which I think actually creates opportunity for people who are maybe more entrepreneurial in their approach. But I think it's also something we have to help people through because there's fear there as well.
Right. Henry and Vlad, I want to bring you in here too. How are you dealing with this issue of, you have these productivity savings. Are you potentially reconfiguring the way teams work within Sweco? Are you seeing a reconfiguration of roles thanks to AI and thanks to some of maybe the productivity savings?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said before. I see in our software development teams, we have software development teams within Sweco. I really see the old-fashioned way of Scrum teams disappear and vibe coding really be the new thing happening. But what I really think is important in this world of agentic AI and fast decision making is that there's always a human between us and AI. And that's also one of the pillars of our AI strategy. Never put any AI-generated content directly to a client. Always have this human checks and balances.
Right. Vlad, how about you? Since you are able to use AI potentially in that first stage, and maybe for some of those later touch-ups that you used to take humans time in front of a computer to do that, what are you redeploying people to do now?
First, I wanted to continue something that Ben mentioned for us internally. So in terms of our products, AI is there, but we also use AI internally to develop our products. And that's also another interesting topic, and it completely changed the way that we approach our roadmap and how we develop software. AI allows us to, basically, any developer can go into any code base and start doing work there. They don't need to be exactly familiar, or they don't need to be an expert in a specific language. They don't need to be an expert in a specific code base. This allowed us to basically break the silos of our teams. So instead of having teams working on one product, we can take people from multiple other teams and give them a task to work on for the next 2-3 months, even if this is something that is not in their usual role. And we found that this actually works pretty well because with AI, you don't need, the language that you're using, the programming language becomes a lot less important than it was originally. Besides, we already have a huge code base, so the AI can figure out, based on the context, what it should be doing most of the time. So if you want to add a new feature, chances are that the AI will be able to figure out how to do this, and then the human just needs to give it a direction and then review the result.
Great. Ben, I wanted to talk a bit about something that, Vlad mentioned, that AI right now is not so good at actually doing the very precision engineering steps. Of course, the vision here is maybe to go directly from artistic rendering to blueprint. How close are we to sort of realizing that vision? I know Autodesk is doing some work on trying to train models that might take us towards that. Where are we in that process?
Yeah, well, it's a journey, right? And when if you watch some of the talks at AU, you got to see some of the investments we're making, and we call it neural AI, and some investments we're making in some models. Right now, when you look and you see what the models are doing, they're produced. The end result, the pixels that you're looking at, is the end result. The system and the model doesn't understand what's behind that. So if you create something, even the rendering sometimes, when you're doing these statistical renderings, it doesn't know that that model behind it is a 3D object, or it doesn't know that when it creates a symbolic 2D plain view representation, what that actually means, that wall actually is a wall that can accept a door, that can accept a window sitting on a foundation with a roof. And that's really what we're trying to use those models, but also train models as well, and even partner with some of the hyperscalers to build things that understand what you're actually looking at. And it almost, I think a number of us have been around for a while. We took this journey from 2D into 3D, and when we talked about 3D, it wasn't just a three-dimensional thing. It was an understanding of what that actual object was, not just what you see on the screen. And the models don't understand that yet, and so that's where it breaks down when you look at those, what you're looking at visually, and we're trying to knock over, to conquer some of those obstacles to further the model, so they do understand that context and don't lose the understanding that the thing we're trying to build. And you need that for the quality. If you don't have that, that's where it doesn't understand really what the intent is.
Right. One of the other trends we're seeing a lot of is people starting to experiment with agentic AI systems, systems that can use other software. What do you think about at Autodesk about the use of agents maybe by your customers, and the idea that maybe it's not going to be a human using the software in the near future? It's starting already to be maybe an AI agent that's performing certain functions on Autodesk using the software. And how are you viewing that and trying to sort of accommodate that reality, but also ensure that there's the trust and the safety that you need?
Yeah, well, and some of it hopefully you took away from this morning, right? As you start to work with agents, what happens is that those agents have access to tools, and those tools are the same tools that we have trust in today, and we can provide validation in. So if the agent is, driving Revit or driving Fusion, all of a sudden now you have this thing that you can validate. You can still run the same simulation analysis. You can still do the same BIM validation, and that data is there. It's very much true that if you're just looking, at the end result of a picture, like that's not. What we're building is far more than that. And so what you'll see is as these agents are there, it's Autodesk and this community that builds those capabilities and bridges us between where we are now to where we're going to go, which is, when you speculate in the future, there's always questions. But we can't lose the core tools that provided that validation.
Right. Henry, I wanted to talk a little bit to you about, you said one of the issues that may happen as we start to get more of these productivity enhancements, as more and more people get used to the idea of AI agents, AI models doing things, is client expectations change. And when we were speaking earlier, you said one of your concerns is that people will start to expect everything will be done at AI speed, even things that really cannot be done at AI speed and should not be done at AI speed. How are those conversations sort of going with customers and convincing them that actually, no, this process does require a human, does require expertise, and it will take several days or weeks to complete?
To be honest, this morning when I was in this conference, I was really impressed about how fast this industry is going forward. I see the two biggest challenges is to keep our colleagues into the same pace, but also our clients. So we have a lot of discussions with clients about the adoption of AI, of course. What I believe in is make it in small, understandable steps, and therefore they can adapt to AI.
Right. And yeah, absolutely. And how about you, Vlad? What are you seeing in terms of expectations from customers?
Well, I mean, for us, it depends on the job. But when customers can go in and generate an image in a matter of seconds based on a prompt, that's kind of their expectation now. So obviously, real-time solutions, especially that can produce results as quickly as possible, that's what customers want, but also the same ease of use that you get with an image generator. They kind of started to expect this from 3D software. So basically, type a prompt and things magically happen. This is kind of the expectation. We're not there yet, but we're trying to get as close as possible to that place with the tools that we have today. So we're building all kinds of AI assistants. Ways for customers to use a chatbot to control the software. Super interesting things that we couldn't do even just a few months ago.
Right. Henry, you also had a point about training and what AI does to the whole training pipeline for the industry. Traditionally, you would bring in junior engineers. They would know certain things from university, but they'd really learn in the first several years on the job from the tasks that you would give them. But some of those tasks are now the things that AI is good at and can do. What are you thinking about at Sweco in terms of the training pipeline? And also, you need to train these people to use the AI tools and where to use them appropriately and where not to. How are you addressing that issue?
I think that's one of the biggest challenges of introducing AI in a company like Sweco, but I think in all companies. And I had a discussion with somebody who just graduated from university, and he told me something which really made me think was, because what is the truth? If you're experienced, if you're working in this industry for 20, 30 years, you know what the truth is. If you see a design, you can directly see if something makes sense or a calculation. But if you're just graduated from university, what's the truth? Even studying, it's already becoming more complex. In my time, in the 90s, the truth was written down in a book. In the age of the internet, it already became a little bit fake, but in the time of the AI-generated content, it becomes even more fake. So I think for the younger generation, what's the truth? Becoming more experienced, I think that's a big challenge. And we don't have an answer yet, but we know that we have to think about it.
Yeah.
And universities are behind. I think that's a core problem, is that universities need to catch up in terms of what is required from the next workforce.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's great. We're just out of time. I want to thank Ben and Vlad and Henry for being with us. Give them all a round of applause, and we'll bring on the next panel. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks so much. Thank you.